Hi guys, I'm Joshua from Year 13 and thanks a bunch for joining us at the Year 13 Expo. I'm joined by the go-to person when it comes to career and recruitment advice, Sung Ho Lee. Sung is a regional director for Michael Page based in Sydney, specialising in the recruitment of senior executive level professionals. Yes? Over the past 14 years, Sung has recruited a vast number of CFO, COO and CEO level professionals into the commerce, banking and finance, government and not-for-profit, private equity and venture capital sectors in Australia. Welcome, Sung. Thanks for stopping by and having a chat about everything to do with careers.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely. First, I'd like to just talk about stripping it back to a bit about basics to do with, finding a job and landing a job. And usually the first thing that people see an employer is, the resume and the cover letter. I just kind of like to discuss, what that actually means now in like the modern working landscape.
Right, okay. So, and to give everyone a bit of context, I think it's important that I explain how technology in the world has changed, right? So, I joined recruitment in 2007, where we were still advertising jobs in the papers. Do you remember what a paper is? Like
I do, of course I do. Yeah. I'm not that young.
Sorry, I'm acting like I'm that old as well. No, but so in 2007, there were press advertisements for job ads, and I think for entry-level jobs, the average application rate was like 25, 30 applications per job, right? So that meant people could take their time reviewing the advert. There weren't many people out there you could really stand out. But have a guess how many people apply now?
Like online?
Yeah.
Surely there'd be like, from stuff I've seen, it's like more than 60 at least in one job.
It's like 100 to 150 for graduates, right? And right now, if you think about it, what's changed? Well, technology has made things easier, right, to apply. You actually don't have to read adverts to apply for a position. So because it's easy, volumes have increased. So you've got to actually think about the person who's reading your resume, thinking, how am I going to stand out, right? So you've gone from 30 to 150. And the rule of thumb is, we teach this in recruitment, that the person who's reviewing the resume, they only have 7 seconds to review your CV quickly, and then they've made a judgment and they've moved on, right? So you've got to stand out very quickly from that. So to explain, I explained to Josh before, but CV and resume are exactly the same thing, and a covering letter is something else. So what I've noticed is a lot more people are focusing on their covering letter for some reason, whereas for us in industry, when we're talking with experienced professionals, we actually tell them to not worry about the covering letter and focus on the resume because of the volume that's out there. Yeah.
Nice. And it's kind of a good point in talking about how to stand out on a resume and things like that. So what are some things that people can do to stand out when, they're putting stuff on their resume?
Well, there's the basic stuff like education, career experience, volunteering, whatnot. Details, I think people are looking for details about the business that you worked in, right? So don't just skim over internships that you worked at a business and just name the business, because the reality is you want it to be impactful when someone's reading that part of your resume. If you think about the volumes, people aren't going to be Googling what Joe Blogs & Co. is, right? So you want to explain what Joe Blogs & Co. is. They are a $200 million multinational business, so it gives your experience a bit of context, right? And I think valuable information like that on one page has a lot more impact than someone putting in volunteering experience from 10 years ago, yeah? What else? I think you got to think about the attributes that the person is looking for, right? So are they looking for hunger, drive, teamwork, leadership, communication skills? Then I would think about your resume and go, well, how does my resume read those attributes, right? Because right now, I think a lot of graduates are just thinking grades. I've got to put my grades there. And the reality is not everyone has great grades. Like I didn't. I don't know if you did, but...
No, definitely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, but I think it's like, speaking on personal experience as well, that's like you grow up thinking like, grades is what gets you like jobs and gets you into places, but like in reality, like you have to say like, yeah.
Totally not the case. Like, when I was applying for positions, it was all about the grades, right? But I'm telling you now, 14 years later, we're not looking really at grades. Like we're looking for a minimum expectation, but we're looking for those soft skills, right? And I think graduates need to be a lot more critical, like self-critical. So I asked them like, how good are your grades? And they're like, great. I got a credit average. I'm like, that's not great. I'm like, if I took home a credit average to my mom, I'd be kicked out of the house. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's having that context of what good looks like.
Okay. Very interesting. So I guess then on that point, so talking a lot about, standing out and things like that on the same topic, you kind of spoke about how you can include certain things, and you spoke about also about like internships and work experience as well. So how actually valuable like are they like as components when it comes to, like assessing someone's character or like their work experience?
Yeah, 100%. I think internship and work experience is more valuable than good grades, right? Because I think it teaches a lot of different things. So as someone who's reviewing a lot of these resumes and seeing a lot of applicants, the ones that stand out are the ones that have a HD average, but actually the ones with internships during their uni degree. So it's telling me, wow, Josh was working for free in his last year of uni. Like he really wants this job, right? Like and I think it shows me the hunger, the passion, the drive, but more importantly, it also tells me that that person knows what they're getting into, right? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people in this day and age that we live in the social media world, right? You think that a job is a certain way, and I hear this all the time. Lawyers watch Suits all day, do a law degree, get into a law firm, and they go, this isn't Suits, where's my romance? And instead they're pushing paper and they're getting coffees. And it's like, the internship would actually show them what the reality of the job is at the ground floor, right? It's like I had a doctor friend, they did an intern, they get into a hospital and they're like, it's not Grey's Anatomy. And I'm like, well, no, right? And what was missing there? I think they were lacking the hunger and drive to find that first, right? So yeah, internships 100% valuable.
Yeah. So also just going off that real quick, I think another important point is although like some internships may not be like necessarily what they're cracked out to be, there's sort of a process that you do have to go through with it to eventually, get out the other side and be like, okay, maybe this is still actually what I want to do. Like the progress is still there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it will show you the reality of what a corporate job is like in that field, and actually help you realize. So some people do internships and they come out of it going, I love that. Like it was hard work, but that one thing that I saw the senior person doing on my last day of internship, that's exactly what I want to be. And that's what people are looking for, right? And I think, like generally speaking, when corporates are looking at graduate resumes, they are looking for experience that's a bit different than just simply working in a corporate or getting an internship. And the reason being, like, I look at sporting achievements, right? So as we're focusing on soft skills, we're looking for leadership, we're looking for communication, we're looking for teamwork, and someone who's played sports at a certain level, like whether they're the captain of their cricket team or, president of the chess club or something. It just shows a little more hunger, communication, teamwork, etc. Yeah. So I'm not sure if I can share, but I hired recently a ex-professional rugby player as a 24-year-old bloke, and his resume had nothing on it because he was playing rugby overseas in France and he played for the Wallabies once, but he literally he's never used a computer before, but he knows what hard work and teamwork looks like. So we hired him off his influencing skills, his hard work, his resilience, his grit, and he showed that on his resume. Yeah.
That's very inspiring because there's a lot of people out there that probably feel like that, I can't do a lot of things, so like people aren't going to hire me. So it's almost like the stuff that it might not be like curricular, it might be like outside of school, but it shows that you have the skills still to like make it and get what you want, essentially.
That's it. We got to stop thinking about grades per se because, what's the difference between an HD, HD and a D, right?
Yeah.
Not that much, right? Unless you're in a science or a STEM sort of field where they need that sort of brain power. But most of the jobs, it's about influencing. It's about communication. Yeah.
Very insightful. Cool. So I guess another thing that comes in the job process when you're hunting for jobs, like you've got your resume, say someone's like being like, yep, like you're awesome, like let's go, like come in for an interview.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The dreaded
interview.
Yep.
I fake it till I make it is
Yeah.
my motto. So do you have any like tips or tricks when it comes to that job interview stage? Like, can you prepare beforehand, or like how, can I better prepare myself?
Yeah, I think there's the generic tips online, which I'm not gonna really cover off, but I'll tell you the ones that have the most impact for someone who's on the other side, right? So number one, a strong handshake. You'd be surprised how many people limp fish it. Have you heard that? So, yeah, okay, that's not good enough, right? Like a strong handshake. It's just like it leaves a good impression, right? Like, and some people, what they do is they walk in so nervous, focusing on other stuff, but the strong handshake kind of shows that I'm here, like I'm excited, here you are. It comes across a bit different when it's a bit soft, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people to focus on a great intro and a close, right? And the reason why I say that, the studies have shown in communication, 70% of what's conveyed is actually not your words. It's about your tone, it's about your energy, it's about your focus, your passion, etc. I think it's something like 10% of your words are actually retained, right? Like to the person who's listening, right? And then what happens when you're preparing for an interview? You're focusing on your words, aren't you? You're like spending all night writing up like awesome answers for something, but actually you're not focused on presenting and like delivering that message with great impact. So I think less on the words, more on the delivery. And the tip I give people is like nail the intro and nail the close. And when I say nail the intro, like one thing I think stands out that graduates do right now is the ones that articulate why they're passionate about working here and want this job, right? As opposed to someone who walks in and just goes, I'll answer your questions, what do you have for me, right? It's like, thank you for your time, Josh. I've dreamt about being here at year 13. Here are my reasons why, right? And I think that has a lot of impact. And what else? Good questions, right? Like I think a lot of people are either afraid of asking good questions or don't prepare, but actually that's part of the interview. And when I say good questions, like good questions, not tell me the hardest thing that you've had to overcome. For me, it's like interviewing you, mate. Like this is one of the hardest things I've had to do. But if you think about me, I've been interviewing 20 people a day, right? Like I want to be impressed by someone, and someone who's thought of sensible questions and smart questions, it leaves an impact on you, right? Like, so always ask good questions.
Do you have an example of like a sensible question? Because I'm curious now, because like my sort of tactic. Yeah,
Oh, go on.
Something that I always ask in like an interview, so to say, is like a culture question. But to me, like culture at a workplace is very important, but it may not be a priority for someone else. But I always seem to go down that route. But in terms of like a sensible question, like, do you have an example of one?
Like I had one recently. We hired a graduate from the University of Wollongong. Yeah, all right. There you go.
Wollongong represent.
And he saw that I've been with the business for 14 years and my job's changed like every 3 years or so. And he was, as a graduate, so I was a graduate, he was a graduate, and he was asking, well, what are the challenges that he would face now compared to what I faced before, and what actually kept me here in this business? So he was like bold enough to be like, why haven't you left? And I'm like, oh, I like that question. Like, he's like, you could have left, you could have chased something else, but you stayed for a reason. Why did you stay? So, yeah.
That's like very, that's, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people might find that a bit like invasive.
You might think it's invasive, so then you don't try, but then you don't leave an impact, right?
That's true.
Yeah. And if I felt it was invasive, I wouldn't answer the question, right? But I think it's better to ask in a respectful way than not.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. So I think another big thing when it comes to the process as well is how much experience is experience, if that makes sense. It's like I could put on a resume, say I worked, for example, at a retail store, and I was there for 3 months. Is it worth putting that on a resume, or, how can I tell what is actually experience, or like what time length is justifiable for me to be like, this shows my experience and this shows the things that I've developed?
Oh, it's that's such a broad question, isn't it? Like, it depends on the type of job that you're doing, how transactional and how much turnover is in that job. But I will say, generally speaking, in the market, tenure is reducing for everyone's role. So back in 2007, when I joined recruitment, it was typical that people stay 3 to 4 years, right? Like in one job and then move on to the next one, or one company. And if you left within 3, there would be you'd be frowned upon, like, oh gosh, you're unstable. But
Like
now
the quitter mentality.
you're a quitter.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a Gen. So I'm Gen Y. So they'll be like, oh, you're Gen Y, right? But that's evolved because tenure is changing, right?
Right.
Like I saw something recently through COVID. The average tenure of CEOs in Sydney, it's like 2 and a bit years. Like, that's actually not that long, right? And that's because of pressure, demands, change in business strategy. So if that's happening, it's like filtering down, right? But if I'm talking about corporate, I'd say anything less than 2 years, you'd probably be questioned, like if you're doing a job. And the reason being, sensibly, it takes a year for a graduate to actually learn what the job is, right? You're learning all throughout the job. And then it's your second year where you're actually good at what you've learned, right? Right? And then by then it's, okay, you're ready to move on if the opportunity to progress isn't in there, right?
Right.
Look, to be honest, anything less than 6 months or a year, like, I think there will be questions asked of that individual. And I think you need to be prepared to answer that articulately, because if you think about the person on the other side asking those questions, it's like, why did you leave that job? Well, found out I didn't enjoy it because it's like blah, 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 and all these different reasons. The person on the other side's thinking, oh, Josh doesn't make good decisions, right? Like, you knew what you were getting into, so I think it's like thinking through the reasons why you're going to leave, because there is a perception on the other side. Yeah. I'd also say it's not a good tact for people to say, I don't like my colleagues and I don't like my boss and they treated me like this, because again, it reflects poorly on you. And I think you've got to manage that message appropriately. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So what happens if, like, I guess maybe the culture of a place wasn't right for you? Is that still a reflection of that person?
Oh no, like again, if it's a toxic culture, I would explain it that way. And again, things are explainable. You just got to get your message right.
Yeah.
So I'm using different examples. You're using an extreme example, but
that's why I feel like I'm going the full different ends of the spectrum. Pretty much.
Are you in a toxic culture right now? Blink if you want me to.
Blink twice if you're okay. No, I am so sweet.
Oh,
cool. And another thing, I guess. So coming out, whether it's coming out of high school, it's so your first like entry-level job, or alternatively you're a graduate, you're coming out, knowing your worth with how much you deserve or how much you think you may deserve, whether like with a salary. And I think it's a bit of a taboo subject. I think talking about like pay and everything when it comes to like entry-level jobs, but even just like negotiations as well.
So why is it taboo? Like,
this is from my own personal experience.
Okay. Yeah.
I could not be, but I feel like I was almost like instilled that talking about pay, like like a pay rise or talking about how much you're worth is almost like frowned upon.
Interesting. Yeah. Like,
Do you disagree?
I wouldn't say that. I'd probably flip the question around to be like, so if the question is, what are graduates worth out there in the market? It depends on the field that you're in and what the market dictates. So thankfully, we live in Australia. No one's going to get underpaid whatsoever because they'll get in trouble. So I'd say the market will dictate what the graduate salary would be, and that depends on the field that you're in, etc. And obviously, top graduates, right? So if you're the best of the best and you've got 3 competing offers from different firms, then your demand is higher, so you can pick and choose what you please, right? But I actually think, like, if I go back to the mission of like year 13, like, and that's about helping teenagers and graduates have a lot. It's career focus, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, find your passion, and almost like if you find your passion in a career way, you'll never have to really work a day in your life.
Yeah. Okay. So on that message, I'll say you're gonna work your passion, never work a day in your real life. Well, that means you've got medium and long-term vision for yourself, right? What that means is you shouldn't sweat the pay, because pay is short-term, right? Like, and that's probably, I wouldn't say it's taboo talking about pay, because you got to negotiate and get what you deserve. But what are you negotiating with? Like, you're one of hundreds of graduates. The company's the one giving the graduate the experience, the chance to learn, develop and grow. So there's a lot of investment on that way. And I hear a lot of graduates debating about $5,000. And I'm like, $5,000, like, it sounds like a lot, but it's like $200 a month after tax. Like, it's not that much. It's not gonna change your life. So I think it's probably more focusing on the medium and long term. Like, am I passionate about this career? Do they have people that are willing to invest in me? Do they have a track record of progressing people like this in this field? Or do I like the culture of the business? Pay me what I deserve. Make sure you don't underpay me, and like, you know, that's important. But pay, if you only focus on pay, that's far too short term, right? And I've seen it happen way too much, where graduates will just chase pay. So they'll come, they'll get the 5K extra now, and then what happens is a year or two later, they're not happy. They'll go again for more pay. They'll keep moving. And then what happens is the career plateau, right? So you've been pursuing pay and you haven't been pursuing experience. And what happens is 5 years later, you get to a certain pay grade where your experience doesn't match up, and then you're stuck, right? Because you haven't learnt how to do certain things, but your salary is here. So you're not willing to take a step back in pay to go back into the market, right? And a lot of graduates end up in that rut. Yeah.
That rut, yeah. Very interesting. So do you have any other parting words of advice for someone that is, you know, either finishing up high school this year, looking to, you know, not actually study, go straight into a job, or alternatively someone that's about to graduate uni and, you know, hunt for their first job?
Yeah, I'd say be self-critical, like, of yourself, like the example I gave you before, where people are saying, I've got great experience. Sometimes you need to get your resume, go to someone who's not a family member, who knows what they're doing, and go, what do you think of my resume? And they'll be like, it's average at best. Feedback is a gift. Sometimes that's what you need. You need feedback. You need to be self-critical, because I think then it will give you the drive and passion to focus your efforts in certain areas. Research a lot. Like if you want to be an engineer in a certain field, then don't just apply on 3 jobs. Research that field. Find every single engineering firm that does that thing, and then directly approach those firms, right? And I'd say show grit, resilience, but also like do a lot more. Like people who are graduating right now, COVID has changed things, right? So a lot of firms aren't necessarily recruiting the same sort of people because of COVID. You know, it's changed certain things. So what that means is people who've been graduating or studying in uni for the last 3 years, they're graduating thinking it's what it was before COVID, because things have changed in a way. Certain engineering fields aren't going to be hiring anymore, right? Accounting firms aren't going to be hiring as much as they used to be. Tech is where it's at, right? So people need to kind of pivot according to the market and then apply for a lot of jobs. So I had another conversation with a graduate who was like, Sang, the market's so tough. Like, I've sent out so many applications, I got rejected. I was like, how many applications have you made? And they said, 10. I was like, oh, that's a good hour. So you need to apply for more. Like 50 applications, you might get 1 or 2 calls back with a great resume, right? So that's kind of the thinking that a lot of graduates need to do. And get internships, right? Like, get internships. You got to show them that you're willing to do things for free. Like,
Awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thanks so much, Sung, for all that advice on careers. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are going to find a light or, you know, a nugget of wisdom that you just shared with us. And put it to good use, essentially. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
And make sure you guys stay tuned for more awesome content coming up on the Year 13 Expo as well. Thank you.